Finches, their colour and lively behaviour in our aviaries has long attracted many to this great hobby. But if we are not soon to improve on our breeding results, many of the species now held in our aviaries could become rather rare and expensive, and even extinct, if one takes note of the rapid destruction of their native habitat. So with this in mind, let's take a closer look at 6 experienced breeders and see if we can improve on our breeding results. The first of these breeders will be Sid Boyle, who houses his mixed collection of finches in a timber-constructed complex on a typical suburban block. The first question that I asked Sid was, why build in timber?
Mainly, Barry, because I'm no flash carpenter, but I can work with timber. The metal would have been beyond me. When I started off with these aviaries, it was only, we had about half a dozen finches with a shed along that side fence. I got reported to the council, had to pull that down. I was supposed to pull a whole lot down. And we finished up, my neighbour helped me, and we finished up with better aviaries, better top sheds. We raised the roof. Even though it was one big hassle at the time, when I was told from the council I had to demolish all my aviaries, I very nearly went out of finches. But having been a finch fanatic since I was about 10 years old, I suppose, when I first started, I thought about it, and then, well, this is what we finished up with. But that's why it is timber, is because that's what I can work with, and I'm afraid metal I can't. Well, there wasn't any real reason. I did want big aviaries, and I had 4 big ones for a start. Mainly because I've never bred finches. I've never kept finches to make money out of them. It's very nice to. I get plenty to pay for the seed and that, but I've never gone in for it commercially. I keep finches because I love finches. And as you can see, this aviary here is, I'll stick to feet because I'm still one of the old school, is 15 by 20. And I don't know how many birds are in there, but there's a heck of a lot. You may not be able to see many, but something that might surprise you to see about 15 Cubans, where lots of books and lots of finch breeders will tell you that one pair of Cubans is about as many as you should have to one aviary. But this all started off from 1 pair. I was a bit slack because I didn't ring them, and I'm afraid it's just gone on and on. But all of those young ones, I think I had a count there a few days ago, there's 15 Cubans, all bred from 1 pair. None of the others are bred, but that all came from 1 pair. But I do intend to catch them up and take them out. There's also, most of the finches in there are very compatible. Painted, St. Helena's, white-headed nuns, African fires, lots of African fires. They've been breeding like steam.
I then asked Sid if he'd been successful in the second aviary to the right.
I go in this aviary, all the finches are compatible. Chocolate Parsons, Red Stars, a pair of Cordon Bleus, which have just had 4 babies left to nest. The Red Stars have just had 4 left to nest. There's Mask, blue-faced parrot finches, which have been breeding well, both on eggs at the moment again. And I think, there's a pair of plumheads and a pair of chestnuts. That's about all that's in that aviary. You may notice in these 2 aviaries there's an opening where the birds can go through to the back. This mainly they were built that way because of council regulations. You are allowed to have wire 4 feet from the fence, but you are not allowed to have your shed up against the fence. But to me, it's very suitable, particularly in the first aviary, because they can fly right around. I've got more shrubs planted there. They get the early morning sun right away. And to me, I think it's an ideal setup if your birds can do that, fly right through. I just was asked about cat control. I have had cat problems, but I have a couple of neighbours that also have birds. And we haven't got a lot of cats around here, but I have got a cat trap. And you can catch a cat in that and give him to somebody, take him to a home, get rid of him. And that's pretty well solved the cat problem. Mice control, which I haven't had a lot of problem with mice, because there's very little stuff on the ground for them, but in these aviaries there's ice cream container with the lid wired on, with a hole just big enough for a mouse to enter, and there's poison in that most of the time, and I've never really been in trouble with mice. Now in aviary, we call it number 2. Most of my finches nest in the bushes, which they've got plenty of in the shelter. They've also got bushes around the back again, and there's also lots of this tins and baskets. But the most, let's say 90% of them nest in the tea tree. That's the main thing I've got in here. Probably if you have a close look, you'd probably tell me something that needs changing by now too. It's been in there for a while. Impossible to change it at the moment because there's just been too much breeding going on. But once they settle down, I'll take the whole lot out and clean it all up.
I then questioned Sid about the diet that he had fed his birds.
My seed, the only seed fed from the seed hopper is pre-mixed finch mix. During the winter they get some Niger, not a lot. There's a little bowl on top, that's their medicated grit. In here, you may be able to see this. Every day that is turned over, that has fresh seed, not the rubbish swept up off the floor. It's fresh seed put in there about every 3 days, kept damp, and that's where they get their sprouting seed. And you only have to turn it over to see how it works, how much they love it. And I do believe that is essential for good breeding. I do know that I would breed a lot more birds if I fed live food. But I'm afraid I found white ants is a big hassle. Once you start them on white ants, unless you keep feeding them white ants, you probably won't breed anything. So I've preferred not to feed them white ants at all. I have started mealworms. I've 7 boxes in there, but as yet I haven't started feeding out. But I will be as soon as the colony's big enough. I know there are some finches. I have in one of the other aviaries. I have Melbas. I don't know. They've hatched probably 10 lots of babies, but never had one survive. They are live food is a must for them. I have tried with mealworm, but they still don't seem to breed. It seems as though they must have white ants.
I then asked Sid if he regularly wormed his birds.
I worm twice a year, every 6 months. I never used to. And anyway, at our meetings we talked about, anyway, I do now worm every 6 months. I don't think I've had any problems with worms. Same as everyone, when you've got a lot of birds, you're going to lose some. You'll always lose a few, particularly during the winter. But I was only thinking, I lost a bird or 2 through the winter, and I was thinking some of those birds, I started off 6 years ago, And all of a sudden I realised some of these birds, they're not dying because there's anything wrong with them, they're dying of old age.
You mentioned, Sid, that you did not supply any live food. Did you actually have any soft food or egg food to give these birds?
Say, Barry, I forgot to mention that, yes. There's soft food, you can see egg food fed twice a day, all the finches, and there's very few of them now that won't eat soft food, particularly when they've got young ones. But twice a day, morning and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they get their egg food.
Sid, many aviculturists often build their aviaries over old rose bushes in the garden. Do you think these rose bushes may be helpful in attracting insects to the aviaries for the finches?
Probably a few aphis. We have probably 60 rose bushes in the garden, but this is one lot that never ever suffer from aphis, because the birds do eat the aphis, yes. I consider fresh water is very important for healthy birds. As you can see, my containers are clean. In the summertime particularly, any container that's exposed to the sun at all, you'll find that you grow the green, but I scrub that out. Water, they regularly in the summertime, they get watered in the morning and again in the afternoon to give them cool water.
I then asked Sid what nesting facilities had proved most successful for him.
Some of the favoured spots for nesting, chocolate pardons, favourite spot up here, anywhere along the front of the aviary seems to be for the chocolates. The red star nest, the four young are now flying, made of seed up in the top corner. Blue-faced parrot finches, 2 nests were bred in this tin, a nest of 5 and a nest of 3. All very successful, but since there has been another clutch laid in there, but since the weather got so hot, they were all addled.
Well, Sid, this is the aviary where the Cubans were bred in colony, and you said that you had no real problems either.
A little bit of fighting, but on the whole, no, they chase each other around, but as you can see, they're all pretty healthy. I think there would be 15.
And the silver-headed nuns, Sid, how did you go with these?
From two pair of white-headed or silver-headed nuns, at a guess, 30, 40 babies.
2 pair, tremendous.
There's 3, I eventually lost one of the adults. There's still 1 pair, and there's three youngsters in here somewhere at the moment. But they just, for a start, they just bred and bred and bred.
You seem to have some yellow-headed stars around too, Sid.
Yellow-headed, for a long time, never had any success at all. They'd have the young ones and throw them out of the nest. I was sitting out here one day and I said to my wife, I'm just about sick of yellow stars. 2 days later, there's 4 babies on the perch, and they've had 2 more lots since.
We then proceeded to the right-hand side of Sid's aviary complex.
5 aviaries here, all approximately 16 feet deep by 4 feet wide. Because of some of the birds not quite compatible, so a few smaller aviaries. In 2 of these, there's a pair of blood or crimson finches. These 2 pair are reasonably compatible. They're in with orange-breasted and some of the very quiet finches. They've even got the red-faced parrot finches in with them, and they don't worry them one bit.
Do the bloods breed?
The last nest of bloods I had was 6 young ones. I only ended up with 3, but 6 left the nest. But I wouldn't advise people to, just because I've got a pair of rather compatible blood or crimson finches, to race out and buy them and put them in with the birds, because you can get some that are real killers, and they will not go with other finches. Best shot, if anyone wants to breed crimson, and I think they're one of the most beautiful finches you can breed, buy a half a dozen or at the same time, put them all into a decent-sized aviary and just leave them by themselves.
You're saying breed them in colonies with no other birds?
No other birds, and introduce them all to the aviary at the same time. Don't try and introduce any afterwards because the original ones will kill them. Number one aviary is mainly a holding aviary, but there are a couple of, there's a pair of chocolate parsons in there, they're breeding at the moment, Bengalese, and a pair of cutthroats. That's all that's in that one. Number two, pair of ordinary parsons which also have youngsters, Pictorella, and a pair of bloodfinches. The bloodfinches at the moment, these two pairs, neither of these pair of bred because the hens are young. I lost the old hen that was breeding, and these two are too young and haven't started as yet. The Pictorellas, I've never ever had any luck. I've never had a Pictorella since I've had them.
Any reason for that?
I've no idea. They've laid eggs and hatched young ones. Possibly, again, it could be because they need live food. I'll find out when I start feeding live food, if that's the problem. In this one, red-faced, pair of Melbas.
Breeding successes?
The red-faced, good. They've got a nest of youngsters in there at the moment.
What's the average cut size for your red-faced?
That's 4.
Very good.
Yeah. They're a great pair, these two. The pair of Jacquerini in here, they're only a young pair. And I wasn't having much luck with my orange-breasted. I had them in a colony. They were laying eggs and hatching young ones, but they didn't seem to be getting anywhere, so I split them all up. And there's a pair of orange-breasted in here. The Melbas are on eggs again, but unless I can get some white ants or something, I won't do any good with them. Aviary 4, pair of crimsons, pair of red-faced, pair of hell. I haven't had anything from that pair of red-faced as yet. And the last aviaries, which have bred 2 babies. It's taken them a long time to do it.
I then asked Sid if he thought his breeding had been successful in recent seasons.
Well, over the years, yes. I think, much like all finch breeders, you have your good years or your good times. I wouldn't say years, because I don't feel there is a finch breeding season. They do breed all year. But you do have certain times when you have everything goes right. They all breed. But I know I've got birds here that I've bred lots from, and other people have had them and they can't breed a thing. And vice versa with me.
Well, I bet there are many breeders with similar things to say, Sid. But how about our next breeder, Roy James? He may be able to add some light to this problem by telling us how he breeds finches in his all-metal aviaries.
Right, Barry, these aviaries were first built out of wood, which I found unsatisfactory. Also, they never had passageways, service passageways. I found a real drawback. So I did extend the old ones, and they were a little bit better with a metal passageway. And as I said, they were at first made out of wood, but the whitehounds did eventually get to them, although they were on bricks. So we came up with this plan here. These 2 big holding type show aviaries, as you see here, and a bank of 9 aviaries down this side, which are smaller aviaries, being 5 metres long by 1.3 metres wide, to house 1 or 2 pairs of individual birds. That way we can keep a very close eye on some of the more difficult finches that we breed and keep a very close eye on the young and feeding and so on. Whereas in a very big mixed aviary, it's very hard to do that. I think the main benefits are in this design is that the angles are designed, the steel angles are designed not to hang down, thus we don't get losses in birds that hit their heads on the overhanging angles as I did with the old aviaries. So that has worked very well. Also the feeding trays and the feeding boxes work very, very well, I find. Just a matter of going along each week and cleaning them and topping up the seed. Works very, very well. The passageway, as you can see, is very easy to get down and allows access into each aviary without having to go into each aviary and birds follow you through as in the old type aviaries I had. So the whole complex is working very well. The material used was galvanised angle iron throughout, painted black for aesthetic reasons, and the whole lot's on a base of house bricks. The complex is reticulated throughout, and there's also water in each aviary, as you can see, making the daily routine of watering and feeding very, very simple indeed. I'm very pleased with it. It's worked very well for me. These door handles are all the same. I find to keep everything uniform throughout saves a lot worry, and you know where everything is. Just a simple little window latch opening up into there. You can see the water container here with a hose pipe, and something necessary to hose the dishes out and water the plants if necessary. As you can see, the water containers are on bricks just to keep them off the ground, keep them away from the snails and grubs and so forth. I keeps the bottom of them dry and keeps them nice and cool with the air circulating around the terracotta water dishes. As you can see, I'm encouraging the grasses and the thistles to grow in that aviary, and a small pomegranate tree there adds a bit of scenery to the whole idea. Alright, Barry, as you can see, these aviaries are very easily maintained with these seed trays which we designed, nice big seed trays. You can get plenty of food on them, and the seed container that goes down the end, and the soft food on the tray itself for live food if need be.